Henshin!
Standing by. Complete.
Greetings, heroes of the internet. I'm Travis.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are the Henshin Men, a podcast that celebrates Japanese superheroes and their high-flying and high-kicking adventures.
In this installment, we will be discussing Kamen Rider, episodes 5 and 6. Episode 5, Monster Mantis-Man, Kaijin Kamakiri Otoko. Seismologist Chikuko Ameyama is working at the Earthquake Research Society when she is kidnapped by Mantis-Man. A series of strange earthquakes occur, and Takeshi Hongo learns he must stop the Shocker organization's newest plan to produce a massively destructive earthquake.
So, Nathan, we've got nuclear weapons.
But no nuclear vessels.
No nuclear vessels. Nuclear weapons. Yeah, so...
Well, yeah. Shocker is using nuclear weapons to create earthquakes. The fiends. I mean, I think that has to be, this is a Japanese show. That has to be two of the most terrifying things you can think of as a Japanese person: nuclear weapons and earthquakes.
Nuclear weapons, earthquakes, and Nazi spinoff organizations.
Oh my god!
For the kids.
So Hydra. I'm just.
Yeah. Shocker is Hydra. Their symbol is an eagle and not a big squid skull thing. But yeah, which is not a Hydra anyway, by the way.
Hashtag Hail Shocker.
Anyway, this episode is probably my favorite of the ones we have watched so far. I really like this episode.
What do you love so much about it?
I really like the Mantis-Man. I think that
the Mantis-Man is pretty impressive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Mantis-Man is pretty impressive. I like the character. I like the design. I think it's really cool how Hongo has to save his friend, but he's too late. She's already been kidnapped and, spoiler alert, brainwashed by Shocker.
It's a lot like the last episode we had. Well, no, it's two episodes ago now.
Yeah, and I like, the fact they actually caught Takeshi in a trap and actually had him like stuck in a hole with a bomb that's going to go off, and he did not know how he was going to get out, and so he can't jump high enough to spin around and flip and stuff to get the turbine to spin. So it's like, how is he going to transform into the Kamen Rider?
Well, the wind from the bomb, of course. Because this is when we find out that he can do other things besides use the motorcycle to do it.
Yeah. Now that scene, and I don't want to get into it too much because I'm sure we'll talk about it when we get to our awards. But this is the first time you don't get a transformation scene on the motorcycle. He's not on the motorcycle when he transforms. He's in the hole. And what did you think of that scene? That slow motion kind of weird it's not rotoscope. It's just kind of like slow motion kind of fade transformation that he does.
Oh, when you see him without the helmet and then it comes on as the transformation continues?
No. Because when he's in that hole and it explodes, everything goes black.
Oh, yeah. That was... Yeah, I know what you mean now. Yeah, that was actually pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, it's
Again,
it's
because
it's
again,
really great.
because again, we're seeing him be able to do different things with the transformation, use things in his environment to his advantage. This is the one of those moments where the villains think that they've got the hero cornered, and then, although admittedly it's a little bit by accident, the
Yeah,
hero uses what they're trying to do against them, and then so the bomb goes off, it spins the turbine, he transforms, and he just jumps out, and then he's like, aha, it didn't work.
yeah, surprised me too.
I totally planned this.
Yeah, but that moment of him being trapped in the hole was a very tense moment. I really liked that, the tension that they had there. Because I mean, it is one of those things of like, we know he's going to get out, he's the hero, but it was still kind of tense because you're like, how is he going to transform, how is he going to get out? If you haven't seen this before and you're watching this for the first time, it is kind of like, oh, how is this going to happen, how is he going to get out?
It's not a question of will he get out, it's a question of how will he get out.
Right, yeah. We get more of the side characters in this. You get Ruriko, you get Tobei, Tachibana, and then you get and I can't remember his name, but he's the basically bartender at the snack bar that Tobei also owns. His name's like Shinzo something.
I think I put down in my notes that it's the it's called the Amigo, right? It's the prototypical
The Amigo.
juice bar. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
prototypical juice bar from Power Rangers.
Yeah, it is. It's a snack bar that they all hang out at and everything. But unlike the juice bar, this one's owned by one of the people who's actually involved in the Kamen Rider, team. There was a line that they mentioned in this that I wanted to know if you picked up on. So while they're at the Amigo bar, the snack bar, they're talking about the earthquakes, and whatever the other guy's name is, Shizo, whatever his name is, he says, well, now we know that earthquakes are not caused by catfish. And then they all laugh and then walk away. Did you pick up on that?
I unfortunately did not, so you'll have to educate me on this.
Okay, well, so they mention it in this episode, and it just kind of is a throwaway line, and that's because anybody who is a Japanese person or knows anything about Japanese kind of folklore and history would get that, so you don't need to explain it. But for us watching it, it's like, why would he just say, well, now we know that earthquakes are not caused by catfish. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, it sounds very random and very odd. But Japanese folklore has a thing called onamazu, which are giant catfish that live underground in underground rivers, and when they bump into the sides of the underground tunnels, they cause earthquakes, and that was a part of Japanese folklore. Onamazu also became a symbol of the kind of impoverished and the lower class people in Japan. Kind of became a symbol for them to get behind, because in Edo, in the Edo period, there was an earthquake, just really massive earthquake that hit, and it destroyed a lot of buildings. Now, most of the buildings and homes that got destroyed were on the kind of upper class side of the city, not the lower class side of the city. And so a lot of the upper class people viewed the earthquake as this awful thing, whereas the lower class felt like it was the great equalizer. It kind of brought all of the rich people who were mistreating the poor down to their level. And so they started using onamazu, these giant catfish, as in like advertisements and in on posters and stuff as symbols for the lower class kind of overcoming the boot of the upper class people. So yeah, so a little bit of a Japanese kind of cultural historical lesson there from a very white guy, but who just
Hey,
knows a little bit.
I do this sort of stuff all the time on my show. So
Yeah, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because that is such a random line that if you don't know what they're talking about, it is like, what are they talking about? What did you think of the lever that controls the bombs being inside of a giant egg?
because they made that the MacGuffin there for a while. It's the mantis egg, and then it's
mantis
what
egg.
Is mantis egg a euphemism for nuclear bomb?
Yeah, it's like mantis egg. What is mantis egg? Oh, it's the big white thing that's sitting on the table, and when you crack it open, there's the lever that you have to pull to stop the bomb. It's such a weird thing.
I don't know why it's there, but I'll go with it.
Yeah. It's such a great, that almost made my WTH award this week, because that was a kind of a WTH moment, but not quite. I put something else down, but that was a WTH moment. When they rescue Chikako and she doesn't remember who she is, that is an intense moment and an intense scene.
It is, and I wish they had done a little bit more with it.
Yeah,
because that was a little plot thread, and then they just kind of drop it.
Yeah, but also, I mean, she like the early on, she's the one who threw him, knocked him into the hole that he nearly died in, and all this stuff. So like, you definitely are getting the sense of, and one of the things that I like about that moment is there is kind of a question, like you in the acting that Takeshi's actor, the actor does for Takeshi. There's a moment of, oh, is it too late? Is it too late to save this person that I love? Or not love, but like care about.
Yeah, she's an old friend.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of that's really interesting to me, that there was just kind of moment. But then when she escapes with the Mantis Man and everything, and then he puts the tracker on her so that he can follow them to the base of operations. That was really good.
Yeah. One of the moments that I actually really liked was this was the episode where I realized that Hongo can actually hold his own pretty well without being transformed, which is probably good because his transformation ability is a little limited. So
yeah.
And he does it while wearing a really dapper suit, I might add. That is his standard. His civilian fare is a nice suit and tie.
Yeah, nice double-breasted suit, blazer and stuff. It's really nice. It's a really nice outfit, and the most 70s hair you can imagine.
Yeah, this is very, very 70s. You could tell it's the 70s. It's almost like the show just likes to come on. It's like, did you know it's the 70s? Can I remind you that it's the 70s? It's the 70s.
Yeah.
And actually, this is something I probably should have mentioned earlier, in our previous episodes. And this was actually something that was brought up on a recent episode of the Film Vault, which is the whole reason that we have a motorcycle riding superhero. And this is because motorcycles were becoming very popular at this time in Japan because of all of the urban congestion. So people were trying to find transportation that was easier to get through traffic and was easier on gas, and also was just fun. I mean, it's motorcycles.
Yeah. I love motorcycles.
So it was a big reason that you were seeing this. And I would even say to it's probably also why a very well-known American superhero who rides a motorcycle showed up a year later after Kamen Rider, that being Ghost Rider. Johnny
Yeah.
Blaze, you know? And
Yeah.
also the popularity of motorcycle stunt shows like Evil Knievel and all of that. It was this explosion of motorcycle popularity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And motorcycles are still more of a thing in Japan, especially in the cities, than they are here. You know, like motorcycles are a luxury thing here, whereas over there, motorcycles are not quite as much of a luxury as they are. A lot of people do treat them as necessities because it's like, well, yeah, there is so much congestion. You need a smaller thing that can get you from point A to point B a lot easier. So mopeds and motorcycles and stuff are more of a necessity in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
in the cities
Mm-hmm.
in Japan.
Mm-hmm. But now I do have a couple of questions that's kind of related to that a little bit, which is, can Hongo choose not to transform when the belt turbine spins fast enough? Or does it just happen? He can't do anything about it.
I mean, in these early episodes, it feels like he has to kind of choose when to use, because he's riding his motorcycle and stuff as Hongo and not transforming. So, but definitely later on, he has to actually do something to transform once it's been charged up.
Mm-hmm. And then, which brings me to another question which is, how come that belt is only visible when he needs to transform? So apparently he's always wearing it, but nobody sees it until he has to transform.
Yeah, that's one of those you just kind of have to go with it. There now in later Kamen Rider series, the belt does appear or like form on them. So like like you do see that it actually just pops into existence on their thing. It's not like it's not explained. Like they do explain it in later ones, but in this series, it's just one of those things of like, yeah, the belt wasn't there, but it kind of was there, and we're just going to pretend like it was always there.
Yeah, at least in Ultraman Z, they just to explain why nobody sees Haruki's ultra fanny pack. They just say, "Oh, yeah, nobody else can see it. Only you and only you."
Yeah.
I just have one more thing I want to bring up, which is, that Shocker is creepy and evil because their elevator buttons look like eyeballs.
Yeah.
I don't know why they look like eyeballs, but they look like eyeballs. Sometimes I think Shocker just does things to be, well, shocking. They're just like, we're just going to be creepy because we like being creepy.
And with that, we're moving on to the next episode.
Episode 6, Grim Reaper Chameleon, Shinigami Kamirian. Former Navy Lieutenant Commander Tsunade is attacked by the Grim Reaper Chameleon. His aim is a submarine model in Tsunade's possession that has secrets relating to a Nazi treasure concealed inside.
So, Nathan, Nazis.
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 More Nazis.
Nazis. Very, very, very obviously Nazis. They say Nazis a lot in this episode. They say swastika a lot in this episode.
Nazi.
Yeah. It's well, we can't put this podcast on YouTube now because we will definitely get demonetized.
But it's hard. How can you not? How can you not talk about this episode and not bring it up? I just wow.
I mean, we're going to eventually get to a Kamen Rider series where Starfish Hitler exists. So be prepared for that.
Starfish Hitler. One of the most surreal monsters in all of Tokusatsu, quite possibly. But oh man. But Yeah, this is an episode. This might even be a concept. I'm not sure a lot of people would have the guts to do now, because they make no qualms connecting Imperial Japan to Nazi Germany in this. And there was a lot of stuff that did that back in the 60s and the 70s. Frankenstein Conquers the World, most notably, very directly connects Imperial Japan in World War II to Nazi Germany. And the fact that this is another story that is dealing with someone who was part of Imperial Japan during the war and knew things and had things, and now other people years later want it. It's Atragon. We had talked a little bit about Atragon before going on the air, and so it's a similar sort of thing. Although, unfortunately, sorry listeners, this is a two-parter. So I don't know quite what's gonna quite how the rest of the story pans out yet, and this is as far as I've watched so far.
So this is the first time that we've had a two-parter in Kamen Rider, which is a thing that does come back over and over again in future episodes that we're going to be covering, and also in future series. There's a bunch of the Kamen Rider series like to do cliffhangers and split into two-parters a lot. So this is a trend that continues, unfortunately.
Not unfortunate for you. I actually kind of like multi-parters. They can be pretty fun if they're done right.
Well, now my favorite, and we didn't even talk about this in our intro episode, but my favorite Kamen Rider series, which is Kamen Rider W or Kamen Rider Double. The theme of Double is in that show through and through, and part of the fact that the theme of that show is double is each episode is a two-parter. It is two halves, and they're designed to be two halves. Even the titles are designed to be two parts of the same title. Like, it is such a it's really interesting how they built that theme into every aspect of the show.
Yeah, constant two-parters actually makes sense for something like that. I know enough about Kamen Rider W to know that it's in that one, it's two people who become the rider. So
yes, two people that merge into one rider, which is so yeah, it's very interesting. So you definitely get more two-parter episodes as we move on, but this is the first one. As much as there is Nazi stuff in this episode,
and apparently the Nazis in this universe love branding everything. So
yeah. The Nazis really did that. Like, come on. Real life Nazis did that. They put their logo on everything.
I'm just thinking of how Hydra would brand everything. It's like, how does nobody not figure out that the super secret organization Hydra is not around?
Oh yeah. Shield is supposed to be a secret organization of spies, but yet their logo is on everything. And yes, I did intentionally use the word logo when I was talking about the Nazis, because that was not undermining it. That was intentional. But no, even though there's so much Nazi stuff in this episode, which is such a weird thing to say, it's actually really fun. I actually really like this episode.
It is actually pretty intriguing. It's almost Indiana Jones-esque in a way, because they're trying to find this Nazi treasure. I'm sure I'm trying to remember what it is. I know I've seen or read a story that was all about trying to find lost Nazi gold, stuff like that. Some treasure trove that was stockpiled by Nazi Germany during World War II, and they're trying to find it now. Stuff like that. So it makes sense. And apparently, whatever this is, it's a big deal. Again, I haven't seen part 2, so I don't know what the big deal is. I just know that whatever this Nazi secret is, it's a big deal, and apparently allows them to control the world economy.
Yeah, so there's a box that was buried, and it doesn't have a lid, even though clearly you can see the lid. and the hinges for the
Yeah,
lid.
and my first thought was when Hongo's looking, I was like, "Oh, it doesn't have a lid." I'm like, "Dude, you're super strong. Just rip the top off."
Okay, to be fair, like these guys obviously like in the last episode they were using nuclear weapons to do stuff. So it's like, so I don't blame him not just ripping it open, because like what if it's plutonium or something like that?
Yeah, true. Actually, that would be a really great twist and tap into some real history, because Nazi
Yep.
Germany actually was trying to do research on nuclear weapons, and the Allies beat them to it. So, and you've seen City on the Edge of Forever. We know what happens if the Nazis get the bomb first.
Yep. I've also
Star
seen
Trek
The Man in the High Castle.
Yes, that as well.
So yeah,
and you want to know, to continuing how this show is now going out of its way to tell you Shocker is evil. Did you know Shocker is evil? By the way, Shocker is evil because Nazis. Word of the day is Nazi. And so
I'd rather it not be. I'd rather it not be the word of the day.
But but it's just one of those things where
it goes, ah!
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of a joke that I remember hearing when I was in college, where they said that there are only a couple of villain archetypes where you don't have to explain why they're evil.
Mm-hmm.
And two of them were vampires, which we've already had vampires on this show, and Nazis. You don't have to, you just say, "Oh, my villain's a Nazi." People just like, "Okay, I know why he's evil." You don't have to explain anything beyond that. And
yeah,
so
yeah. It's also right. It also explains why so many movies, even sci-fi movies and shows and stuff, kind of take place in World War II, instead of like World War One or in other, during other wars. And it's because really World War II was kind of the last time where we had a clearly these are the bad guys, and no one really agrees with their way of doing things, so we can villainize them as much as we want. Whereas you get into some very questionable territory when you start getting into setting during other world events and other wars, where you start villainizing the opposite side, because it's like, no, because we weren't completely innocent and they weren't completely evil. But it kind of explains why so much pop culture does spend a lot of time in World War II.
Well, that, and let's be honest, Hitler was a supervillain. But speaking of supervillains, the Shocker is evil because they're brilliant scientists who are going to figure out what Kamen Rider's kryptonite is. They dress like monks, and it's a little freaky.
Yeah, that was cool though. That was cool. I liked it. It
was cool, but it was freaky at the same time.
There's so much about Shocker that is just such a, like, this is everything that's evil and twisted and bad. You're just going to throw it all.
And now I have to ask you this, because they do a pretty good job of trying to hide it. So if he was played by a Japanese guy, they hit it well. And that was Dr. Heinrich, who shows up at the end of the episode. He's supposed to be German. I paid attention to him, and it looks pretty obvious to me that he was speaking in a language other than Japanese, and they dubbed over him. Do you have any idea? Because he was wearing sunglasses, so I couldn't tell. Was he actually a Westerner?
He is a white guy. Now, where he's from, I don't know. I don't know where the actor is from originally, but he was a white guy, and he was speaking English and was being dubbed over.
Oh, okay. That actually makes sense. So I got it right.
Yeah.
But you know what? Another thing I really liked about this episode, the swashbuckling action. We get a nice variation on what we've seen so far.
Yeah. I mean, the action is so good, and this episode I think is where the action kind of steps up a bit. Like we've kind of had kind of a similar action style, and then this one kind of steps it up, and I really like that. adventure kind of, like you said, Indiana Jones. It really has a very Indiana Jones. Also has, I don't know if you ever saw it, but the 1010 movie that
Yes, I've seen that.
Peter
CGI
Jackson
movie?
did. Yeah,
Yes.
it has a very much a feel like that, and I like that movie. A lot of people didn't like it. I like that movie.
Mm-hmm. 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 So now we've got Kamen Rider fighting goons with swords and getting into sword fights with the goons. And by the way, they made a change, and you'll have to let me know because I haven't watched past this yet. Now the Shocker goons don't have crazy pro wrestler makeup. They're wearing masks. Is that the thing from here on out for them?
I think the face paint comes back, if I remember right.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure the face paint comes back. I think because if you notice in all of the goons in each episode, they have a patch on them that is the symbol for the general that they're working under. So like in the last episode, not last episode, but during the Scorpion Man episode, it was a scorpion.
Mm-hmm.
During this one, it's a chameleon. You can actually see the chameleon shape on him. So I think it's they're adding a little uniqueness to him, but I'm pretty sure the face paint comes back.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering because I noticed that now they're wearing masks.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna throw this out there. It's just a funny little thing that I know from doing research on these sorts of things. But there is a point in the episode where the chameleon gets angry when Hongo bursts into not as Kamen Rider, but it's Hongo, and he bursts in to halt the evil plan that the Chameleon Man is doing. And the Chameleon Man responds to him jumping in by saying "Kisama," and it gets subtitled as "you" with an ellipses.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what he said.
No.
Kisama is actually a Japanese insult. It literally, the literal translation is actually really funny. The literal translation is "Lord of the Donkeys."
Yeah.
So that's funny, but it usually doesn't get subtitled that way.
Yeah. He called him a jackass.
Putting it politely.
Yeah.
So I don't know whose subtitles, probably Shout Factory, but it's like, yeah, you're being a little nice there, Shout Factory. Yeah, sure. But I know these things, unfortunately, because I've researched Japanese insult.
I do want to talk a little bit about the Chameleon Man, because this is my favorite villain so far. I don't think I've said that in a previous episode, but this one is, I like that he can turn invisible.
And that's his thing. That's why he's the Grim Reaper. He's invisible. Nobody can see him, and he can just sneak up on people. And actually, let me double check to see if one of his lines actually made my award this week. No, it didn't. One of the contenders for my Kamenacha award for this episode was when he said that something like, it's like, "I am death," or something like that. To, in his first scene when he was going after Tsunade.
Yeah, it's one of those effects that they did pretty well. Like, even on a low budget, they did that effect pretty well. Him coming out of the shadows and kind of disappearing and everything and reappearing, they did pretty well in for such a low budget show from 1971. But he turns invisible. The one giveaway, though, is the dual shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very interesting and very Doctor Who, New Who.
It is very Doctor Who.
So I thought that was kind of cool, because you get the Vashtanarada.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, that was Silence in the Library, right? Ooh.
Yep. Silence in the Library.
That was a terrifying episode. Oh,
yeah, man. A lot of those episodes are.
Yeah, but although I gotta say, there was one little as good as as the costume for the Chameleon Man looked, there was one unfortunate part because the eyes on the thing don't move, and there is a scene where the Chameleon Man's looking through binoculars to spy on Hongo, and I'm like, your eyes aren't actually looking through the binoculars, man.
Right. I know. It's so funny. It's so funny. Oh man.
It's funny, but I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna go with it because, yeah. But it might honestly be the best looking suit that they've had so far. And again, continues to make me ask the question, how literally do I take this?
Yeah.
Although it seems to be leaning more in the you take this literally. This is not this is not supposed to be a costume. In real life, it's a costume, but it's not supposed to be a costume.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. As again, as time goes on, you'll see more of it's supposed to be they're actually mutated people. Which is so why I think it's so weird, because they use the word kaijin in this in the show to refer to the monsters that he fights. But in the subtitles that we're watching on Tubi, they translate that as cyborg. Now, I know like Takeshi and Kamen Rider, he is a cyborg. I don't think these monsters are supposed to be cyborgs, because kaijin is not translated cyborg in Japanese. Like, that's not what cyborg is. There is a word for cyborg, and it's not kaijin.
Yeah, I know it's weird, but it's probably one of those things where it's difficult to translate kaijin, in a way that would make sense. Like kaiju actually gets translated as just monster usually. And,
right.
So there's some nuance to the language, because the Japanese language is like that. It has a lot of nuance to it. So, translating it into English is a little bit of a challenge, because you have to understand the context and other things with how the words are being used in order to translate them better.
Right. And the word kaiju in Japanese, kaiju, is strange beast. It's used for monsters, usually mindless monsters, usually monsters that are destructive and very animalistic. So you think of like Godzilla, you think of all the ones that Godzilla fights and things like that. Whereas
the monsters that Ultraman fights. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Whereas kaijin, it means monster man, I think, is how it's usually translated. And it's essentially how they describe mutated men, or man-like monsters who have, who are either started as human and are mutated into monsters, or monsters that are human enough to where they have like personalities, they can speak, they can do things like that. So that's why kaijin is used in this series, whereas kaiju is used for monsters like Godzilla. A lot of people think kaiju means giant monster, and in America, because we've kind of adopted the word to mean that, yes, it does, but in Japanese, that is not what it means. It just means monster. So they use it for a lot of things. But
dai kaiju is what you need for giant monster.
Right, dai kaiju. Yeah, but kaijin, they use it specifically in this series and in series like this and Super Sentai and stuff, because those monsters are mutated men. So that's why they're called kaijin. But it is just one of those things of like, they call them cyborgs, whatever. I don't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're the bad guys. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters. They're the bad guys. All right. Well, we're going a little long for time, so let's just move on to our awards.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with our Henshin Kick award, which is our best stunt from the episode. So what is your Henshin Kick award?
I went with the Rider Kick in episode 5, because at this point, it's his finishing move. Because wasn't that the first one where he used it and the opponent exploded?
Yeah, because I think the previous ones had dissolved or whatever.
Yeah, but this one, it's like, yep, now it is definitively the finishing move. Like, if he was a pro wrestler, this is now his signature move. This is how he ends the match.
Rider Kick. My Henshin Kick award goes to a very specific scene. Now, replayed this scene a couple of times when I was watching it because this is a really cool scene, but it's one of those blink and you miss it. But there's a scene in the Mantis layer where Takeshi, as Kamen Rider, goes to jump down the stairs because there's like a little, not really, just like 6 steps there, not a bunch of steps, but just like 6 steps there. But he flips over the set of stairs and lands and then starts to fight off the goons and stuff and the Mantis Man. And that there are no cuts like in other points where he flips. You'll see him like jump and then it cuts to a scene of him flipping and then it cuts to him landing. This fight scene is done all in one shot. There's no cuts in it. So when he is fighting off and punching and kicking all the guys on the top of the stairs and then suddenly does a somersault off the top of the stairs to the bottom stairs, and then kicks and punches the guys at the bottom of the stairs. That is all done in one shot as one stunt, and it is really cool.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, and then we have the Talkin' Toku Award for the best special effect. What do you got, Travis?
So my Talkin' Toku, my best special effects is the transforming effect that is in the Mantis one. Now we talked about it a little bit, but when Takeshi is stuck in the hole and the Mantis Man lowers the bomb and he doesn't know how he's going to transform, and then the bomb goes off and the whole scene goes black and you just have Takeshi there and he's kind of like slow motion moving. It's not really slow motion because it's like still shots bleeding into the next, but then he slowly transforms and it looks so stylized and looks so much like a comic book or an anime even. It's such a stylized way of transforming that I really, really like it. It really stood out to me.
Mine is pretty simple, and we've talked about it already. It's the Chameleon-Man suit because it's probably the best looking monster suit that they've had so far on the show.
Yeah, definitely.
Other than the fact that the eyes move.
yeah. Getting into our next award, the Kamen Award, which is our best line of dialogue award. So what's your best line of dialogue from these?
I've been waiting for some action movie one-liners in this show, and I got a pretty good one here from episode 5. From Hongo as KR, he says, "Those who rob others of their freedom and threaten the peace must pay."
Yeah,
as he comes in and eating one of the shocker bases.
Yeah, such a great action one-liner. It's really good. My favorite line, my Kamen Award, goes to in the same episode, but at the end, where he gives the speech at the end where he says, "I am no longer little Takeshi, the neighborhood boy you knew. I'm not the grown-up Takeshi Hongo either. I'm a cyborg, forced into battle with shocker that may never end. I am Kamen Rider." This is the first time that Takeshi would and we talked about it in a previous episode, but that was the first time a character referred to him as Kamen Rider outside of the narrator. This is the first time that Takeshi refers to himself as Kamen Rider. He has fully accepted the role of Kamen Rider.
Yeah, it's always great to see a superhero when they get to that moment where they're like, yes, I am Spider-Man, like at the end of the first Spider-Man movie. He's like, "Who am I? I'm Spider-Man,"
Yeah, it's that the embracing of the journey, like, on the hero's journey, because there's always in a hero's journey you always have that moment of you can turn back now if you want to, but then the hero just fully accepts the journey that's ahead of them, and that was this moment for Takeshi, so that's why it was my favorite line.
Yeah, that's a great one. And now, WTH, what the Henshin? And for the craziest moment in the episodes that we looked at. And I owe you all an apology, listeners. I got my episodes a little mixed up. If this was an episode of the Film Vault, my intrepid producer, Jimmy from NASA, would be yelling at me quite a bit right now. It was actually in these episodes where we had the infamous necklace sequence that we talked about in the last episode. in the Scorpion episode, it was the red goo turning its victims into more red goo. In this one, it was the security. It was the victims getting turned into the necklaces, and it happened several times. At first, it was just to a security guard at the beginning, and I texted this to you, and I said I couldn't stop laughing. And then it happens again to the Mantis-Man and his henchmen when they die. So it's a Mantis-Man thing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it actually comes back in another monster, but yeah, that is a thing that happens in this. It's they get spaghettified, or they turn into a beaded.
Yeah.
You know what it is? It looks like the beaded thing, the beaded chain that you get at the bank that keeps you from stealing the pen.
You might be right.
That's what it looks like.
I mean,
that's what it looks like.
They just went to the bank and said, "Hey, can we take that?" Sure. What are you going to use it for? I'm about to make a Mantis-Man dissolve. I mean,
and to kind of give a little peek behind the curtain, we are recording all of these in bulk right now, all these first few episodes, so we're kind of the episodes are bleeding together and blending together in our minds, so we're having trouble keeping everything straight, so forgive us, listeners.
Yes. It's okay. We're figuring it out as we go.
All
right. Well,
what the heck, or what the Henshin award goes to when Hongo is disguised as one of the goons, but then throws off the mask. He's wearing the goon's uniform. All he does is take the mask off, but instantly is transformed back into his regular suit.
Yep.
It's like, was he wearing that underneath the suit? The
probably.
uniform? What?
That's actually one of the advantages that he has now. If the goons have switched over to masks and not makeup, now he can actually do stuff like that. He can beat one up, take the mask, and be like, haha, you don't know it's me.
So now we can move on to our minute to Henshin It, where we take just 1 minute or less to sum up all of our thoughts on these 2 episodes that we just talked about. So, Nathan, you have 1 minute to Henshin It.
Okay, so now I'm starting to see, again, the show is settling into itself. Now we've got the word of the day. Talking about this now, making sure that you know Shocker is evil. Did you know Shocker is evil? Shocker is evil. In case you forgot, Shocker is evil. So we're expanding on the mythology a little bit. We're expanding on the characters a little bit, as we've already talked about. We have Hongo developing. He's embracing the mantle of Kamen Rider, and the effects continue to improve. I just want to say I am mildly annoyed that we had to end this first bulk of episodes on a cliffhanger. It's driving me a wee bit crazy. I'm one of those people where if it's a multi-parter, I kind of want to finish the multi-parter in one go if I can, but I will be patient, listeners.
Yep. We're gonna we'll get to it. We'll get to it. I promise. We will get to it. All right. So my turn for a minute to Henshin It. Yeah, my final thoughts on this. I've talked about these are 2 of the most fun episodes that you're going to get from this first crop of episodes. They are absolutely just bonkers ridiculous. This is everything that I expect from a Henshin hero or a tokusatsu show. It's crazy, it's weird, it's not stuff you will get in any kind of American show. Definitely not the Nazi stuff, but not in a kids show anyway. But it is so much fun. It's so entertaining. The villains keep getting better and the action keeps getting better, and I love this show. I love Kamen Rider, so keep watching. Rider Kick.
Wow, you are getting really good about coming in under time, man. You're gonna have to start banking this.
Yeah, so that finishes this episode, this installment of the Henshin Men, and we just want to say thank you for listening to us. We are a tokusatsu appreciation podcast. You can find links to all of our social media in the description of this episode. You can listen to more of me on the Kaiju Weekly podcast and listen to more of Nathan on the Monster Island Film Vault. If you found some enjoyment from this podcast, consider giving us a 5-star rating on iTunes. It's real easy. You can just do it right in the app. And until next time, what are we going to say, Nathan?
Remember, heroes, beauty is only henshin deep.